as well, resources for undocumented students. So, I mean, it's really just a huge resource for you all to have handy to refer back to. So please take advantage of that. And then on our College Depot website, we also have a host of resources that a lot of the advisors have created for our students to help also keep them on track. And we do have a nice little senior timeline for you to look at so that you can see where you should really be at and focusing on for each of the semesters. So for fall, spring, winter, summer. So it's a really good snapshot just to see where you're at and kind of just like doing that 10 check, like, okay, I'm right on track. Like I can chill out a little bit or work, you know, there's always like something to work on, right? Like when I talk to you all, there's like always something to work on. So like, as long as you have, you know, oh, I checked in with my counselor, I'm doing all the academics and clubs, I've already, you know, prepared for my ACT and my college applications, well, scholarships, right? And then we can talk about essays. There's like always something. And so it's really nice to have those key elements presented to you so that you can always like kind of just be balancing all the things that you have to do in your way that makes sense for you. Next slide. So transcripts. So understanding your transcripts. So this question comes up a lot. And why is it important? So a transcript is like a map of your 4 years in high school. And you're going to hear the word unofficial and official. So the official transcripts are usually what your colleges and the scholarships are going to want, and you can obtain those from your school office, from your registrar. So I'm asking your parents, you can even give them a call, and usually it's like a specific process. Well, you have to fill out a form, and then they'll mail those directly to your colleges or to your scholarships. But then there's also like a quick, easy way that you can obtain your unofficial transcripts. And sometimes a lot of the scholarships will allow you to obtain those that way. Sometimes they'll even let you take a screenshot. So usually the unofficial transcripts, you should be able to log on to your school like dashboard. Usually you have like an account, Canva or something, and you should be able to access it that way. And those are a lot easier to obtain. And the same process will happen, you know, throughout your colleges when they're requesting those information. Next slide. And again, just college applications usually will ask for official, but a lot of them, you know, will sometimes take unofficial until your official transcripts come in, and your school office or your school counselor are the best people to ask for those. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to have a VNA talk a little bit more about the ACT and SAT and why that is important.
So, hello, my name is VNA. I'm also a grit advisor, so I'm going to be talking about the ACT and the SAT and why it's important. I'm sure you guys know already, you guys already took the test, but in case you know, like the SAT, but not so much about the ACT and not so much about the SAT, we're going to talk about both today. So they're both entrance exams for colleges. Some colleges do require it and they would want you to report your score, but most colleges lately, it's optional. So just make sure to check that when you are applying to schools. But some scholarships, at least the merit-based ones, do want to know your score just to, because they are a little bit more rigorous and they want an idea of how well you scored. So then the PSAT, it's a test that you guys took last year. It's like the pre-SAT. And then that will basically help you qualify for like special scholarships or the National Merit Scholarship. And I'm sure you should have been notified if you did qualify for those by now. But next slide, please. So first we're going to talk about the ACT, or the American College Test. It was first developed by a professor from the University of Iowa, and it was basically created to compete against the ACT. So the ACT is divided into 5 sections: English, math, reading, and science, or 4 actually. Each section is worth 25% of your total score. And similar to the ACT, its raw scores are converted to a total score that then is going to range between 1 and 36, 36 being like a perfect score. Next slide. So what is on the ACT? So there's an English and a math section. The English section is 75 questions in 45 minutes. It's mostly on conventions of standard English. It includes 5 essays or passages, and then a few questions on these different topics will follow for each passage. For the math section, it's about 60 questions and you have an hour. It's mostly on these 2 sections, preparing for higher math or like college level math. And then the second section is integrating essential skills. And these are the different topics you'll be tested on for each. And a difference between the ACT and the SAT is that for the ACT, you are able to use the math calculator for the entire section. So it's a big distinction. Next slide, please. And then they have the reading and science sections. So for reading, it's about 40 questions and you have 35 minutes. It's on these 3 sections, mostly key ideas and details, craft and structure, integration of knowledge and ideas. And then for the science section, it's about 40 questions and you have 30 minutes. It draws upon like interpretation of data, evaluation of models, inferences and experimental results, scientific investigation, and advanced knowledge is not necessary for this section. Next slide. So there is an additional section. It's called the writing section for the ACT. Some schools do require it, others don't. And it's important to note that the ACT with the writing section is more expensive. So without the writing section, it's $68. With the writing section, it's $93. And it will come after you took those 4 sections. So it's 40 minutes and you'll have a prompt which describes a complex issue and 3 different perspectives. So then after that, you've read your prompt and you're going to write an essay developing your own perspective on the issue in comparison or contrast to the perspectives provided. So then the test is the writing section scored by 2 well-trained qualified readers. And yeah, next section. So how to register for the ACT. The ACT exam fee is $68 without the essay, $93 with the essay. Most schools now offer the ACT on campus on a designated day in April for juniors, so you guys already took the ACT. But if you do want to improve your score and take it again, you can register for it again, but you'd have to do it on your own. And students with free or reduced lunch can qualify for up to 2 free exams for both the SAT and ACT. You would just have to go to your counselor and obtain a fee waiver. So, yep. And next slide. So these are the ACT test dates and deadlines coming up. The one that's next is September 9th. The registration for it already passed, but if you are still interested in taking it, the next test date you guys are eligible for is October 28th, and the deadline September 22nd. So you have time to obtain a fee waiver and register if you would like to improve your score. Next slide. So now we're going to talk about the SAT. Basically, the SAT, according to the College Board, it's the SAT. It's a test focused on the skills and knowledge at the heart of education, measures what you learned in high school and what you need to succeed in college and career training. So it assesses how well you analyze and solve problems. And the SAT also has like optional like subject tests. So you can test out of that subject by scoring well on that test. So yeah, you just want to make sure that your colleges do accept these subject tests. So double check with that. Next. So what is on the SAT? In comparison to the ACT, the SAT is just reading, half math. It's 52 questions for the reading section, and it is administered in 65 minutes. The writing and language section is 44 questions, and then it's administered in 35 minutes, and basically the same thing. This one is scored between 200 and 800. And then the mathematics section, it's broken up into two. So you have a math test section with no calculator, and that's 20 questions for 25 minutes. And you have a math test section with your calculator. That's 38 questions for 55 minutes. And it tests like number and operations, algebra, geometry, data analysis. And the total score ranges between 400 and 1600, 1600 being a perfect score. And they also have an optional writing test that can be scored between 200 and 800, and it is 50 minutes. Next slide. So how to register for the SAT if you are interested in taking it. The exam fee is $55. You can register with the College Board. And again, if you in high school have like free or reduced lunch, you can qualify for up to 2 free exams for both the SAT and ACT. So again, just visit your counselor and obtain a fee waiver, so you don't have to pay the fee. And then next slide. So these are the test dates for the SAT. You are able to, we've missed this one, but we are able to test for October 7th if you are interested. The deadline September 7th. So obtain your fee waiver from your counselor and register then if you are interested in taking it. Next slide. Oh, okay, actually, if you can go to the 7th slide, Chris. So basically, we're going back to the 7th slide because here we created a free SAT and ACT like list of free resources that you guys can use to study. And it's on the College Depot website. So if you click on it here, this is what it looks like. So this is for the ACT, this is the SAT. They look the same pretty much. Oh, you guys can't see it. If you don't mind clicking on the link, Chris, please. Okay, that's what it looks like. So they have the ACT section. I kind of made this little step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So step 1, you want to identify like your weak spots by taking a diagnostic exam. You want to review with practice questions, and then you want to sort of reinforce those topics, or you want to review with content lessons, and you want to reinforce those topics, but with practice questions. And then the last step is stimulating test day conditions, really getting you to like focus for like the 4 or 5 hours that you're taking the exam by taking full length practice exams. So that's the most important thing you can do. Really reviewing those like wrong answers if you can. But yeah, we do have a few resources here. We have 10 for each. I will say there's more for the ACT than there are for the SAT. So if you're kind of debating between which one to take, you can look at these. But yeah. And Chris shared this in the chat also, so you can access them. And if you're in person, we also have the sheet available in like the lobby area too. Alrighty. And then we can go back to slide 18. So next, Dominique will be presenting for the next few slides.
Okay, so I know everybody here pretty much today is a part of the GRIT program, obviously. So pat yourself on the back for one, just because you've already made it to at least your last first day of high school. So I know it can definitely be a bittersweet moment, but all of us here are so proud of you. So I just kind of want to talk through a little bit more about the college admission process, help you get prepped for what this last year is really going to entail for you guys. So that being said, next slide. Okay, so obviously y'all are in your secondary education. So post-secondary is essentially following your high school career. So here are some various opportunities for where you can see yourself outside of the high school realm. So first we start off with colleges. We have smaller private liberal arts schools that are available to you, with some examples on the board, like Prescott College. So these liberal arts colleges are going to focus on more specific areas of study, including maybe humanities, social sciences, arts. So those are what those schools are geared more towards. Then you get into the public community colleges, or in other words, the junior colleges, or even in other words too, like a 2-year degree. So one listed on the board is like Gateway Community College. But with all of us residing very near and dear to like Phoenix Union, here in Maricopa Community College District, there's 10 different opportunities that you can choose from. So that is a community college. Essentially, you are to obtain your associate's degree, which we'll talk about in just a second down below too. Other colleges could include out of state, like not only in-state, and with a couple on the screen, for example, more like liberal arts based too, like Bates in Maine and Occidental as well. Moving down on the list, then you have universities, and more often than not, like those are 4-year programs for you to obtain your undergraduate bachelor's degree. So you have the larger public in-state universities. So the 3 main ones here are ASU, U of A, and NAU. We also have private universities as well too. Here in state specifically, that includes Grand Canyon University, GCU. So just different routes as far as like funding and what the schools look like as far as their missions and whatnot between public and private. Then of course, there's also out of state universities, which some of you may have on your college's list of choice at this time too. Some include, for example, like Harvard and Princeton, maybe like USC. So there's various opportunities out there. There's also for-profit schools. For example, we have a here in the Valley, like University of Phoenix, who focus more specifically even through like online classes and just different ways in which they provide support for their students, especially through funding too. So with the various types of programs and degrees that you can see yourself obtaining are listed on the screen. So that could include certification or vocational programs. Maybe you're interested in a specific trade like esthetician that may require like a certificate or licensure. Moving forward, you could obtain, like we mentioned at the community college level, that 2-year associate degree to put under your belt first, and then moving forward and proceeding with your bachelor's, which is the 4-year degree, which is all within the undergrad standpoint. Then you get to graduate, right? So listed on the screen, that can either be a master's program, and above all could be that doctorate program for whatever it is that you're looking to study. So various opportunities, but just to kind of highlight the different ones for y'all, since I know now is the time to definitely start narrowing down your list, consider a little bit more specifically what college you're looking into or what type of ultimate, degree or goal you want to achieve in the long run. Next slide. There's also apprenticeship opportunities as well, which I know that we help with a lot at College Depot too. So if you're not familiar essentially with what an apprenticeship program is, it allows you, the student, to earn wages or to be compensated for your work while still pursuing a degree. So it is a hands-on experience in full circle. So they're definitely growing beyond like the traditional realms that we had previously. Like, for example, they're now expanding into healthcare, information technology, transportation industries. So it's definitely quickly growing, and I know there's much of a need for that. So if you see yourself doing something specific like this, you can definitely get in touch with a couple of our advisors for the Craft a Profession program that we have here. So I know that's a little bit separate from GRIT than what you're involved in right now. But that's definitely an opportunity that can kill two birds with one stone too, to allow you to really be hands-on in your trade and to excel a little bit more quicker too. Next slide. Okay, so now's the time, if you haven't already, to definitely start browsing and researching your colleges of choice. So you may have already utilized some of these resources with your own GRIT advisor. So we're not going to click through all of them today, but just for your reference, here are some. I know a couple of my big favorites are Big Future on there through College Board, which I know VNA was talking about, were actually the creators of the SAT. So you most likely already have an account. So you can definitely log on in, favorite those colleges of choices that you like, just to make it easier to go back and look at. But within all of these websites, they have the same pattern and trend. They're definitely going to provide you with more of the specific demographic search, just in seeing how much the population is, if it's public, private, tuition rates, academic criteria, you name it, it's all in one place for you to make it a little bit easier than trying to play I Spy directly on the university's website. So that's a great one. I know College Data is very similar to Big Future as well. The bottom one, Campus Real, is actually a student favorite too, just because you get to see the campus and visions of the school like through student perspective. So you're able to look through the video in the lens of a student, like current freshman over there as well too. So that's always just a good like visual instead of just researching and reading word for word. It's very like pleasing to the eye and easy to navigate and just exciting too. So as you are researching your colleges of choice, jot down all of these informational pieces. Like I said, you want to consider the size, just what is your comfort level? You know, there's not a one size fits all for everyone's interest and preference. So maybe you want a school that's a little bit larger to meet more friends or get more support from other leaders, and that may be an option for you. Even like, for example, let's say the community college level, class sizes are definitely going to be a lot smaller. So if you even like enjoying maybe similar to what you're doing now, senior year in high school, 15, 20 students, there's definitely a smaller and closer knit group of students for some of those classes versus maybe like a larger lecture of 300 or so at like university level schools. So a couple of things there. Of course, like your majors and programs, what is it that you ultimately want to focus your time on these next 2 to 4 years plus? That's definitely such a big focus to think about and consider what they have. Because some colleges may have more specific integrations into even other subject areas like psychology, for example, for you to take a look at a little bit more and see what is your best fit. Another thing too, not listed on here, but even consider what minors could be. It's a little bit different from a major, but it's still allowing you to major in something you're interested in, but also minor in something that you still want to learn the trade for or have the knowledge and skills to take with you post-graduation or even while within your college academic career. So keep in mind that some colleges definitely offer things like that. So in your search to narrow down some of those things. Campus life is always a big one, especially if you're looking to live on site, on the student living dorms. Like I know that was very near and dear to me. I wanted to feel comfortable on where I was and just feel the vibes with all the other students and how we interacted. So that's something to take into consideration too, which a lot of the sites, like although you're not there in person physically, they do a good job at providing visuals, videos, and other informational pieces like for you to get a glimpse of what that could and would be like. Location as well too, especially in state or out of state. And definitely try to attend In-person tours, and I know like almost a blessing disguised with COVID, like we're now able to have virtual tours as well too, especially at the comfort of your home, or if it's just something out of state that is just not in your means to go visit like at that time. Just to definitely take advantage of everything online at your fingertips. That's super cool nowadays. And then other things like the weather, I know is important too. Like if you're wanting a hotter climate or colder climate, and cost of attendance, of course, is like a big priority for a lot of us, as it was for me too, because that will vary as you as an Arizona resident to receive in-state tuition versus if you were to go out of state and receive that pricing as well. And lastly, we'll talk through, of course, financial aid and scholarship opportunities, but utilize some of those websites right off the bat to see what all is out there for you initially. Next slide. Okay, so then after you've done all that, or in the process of doing that, you want to then categorize your schools, whether you like to physically put on pen and paper, and I know we have handouts that we can provide you here to create that college details admissions chart, or if you're someone that's tech savvy and wants to maybe create something like an Excel for more options or more categories to help you be comfortable and familiar with all the colleges, definitely do what fits you well. So research 2 to 3 schools and apply to 1 to 2 in each category. So here are the 3 categories if you're not familiar. So there's safety. So what that means is you as a student, your grades, your academic credentials, your test scores, they fall well above the school's range for the average freshman. So that being said, you can reasonably certain to yourself that you would be admitted to that safety school. So maybe, for example, that could be Phoenix College down the street for a community college to start your 2-year degree off on. Match is exactly what it sounds like. It's matching your academic credentials to those of the school. So it's not unreasonable to be accepted to several of your match schools. So maybe you have the Golden 3.0, and that's exactly what ASU is looking for, along with a couple other academic credentials too. If it matches perfectly, like I think that's a good solid indicator that you could certainly well see yourself there. And then lastly, reach, and that is what it sounds like as well too. Your academic credentials, they're gonna fall a little bit below the school's range, so just a little bit out of your reach. It may be a long shot, but it could still be possible. One example I know that's on the screen is just realistically, if you have maybe like a little bit of a lower GPA, let's say like a 2.8, and you're striving to go to USC that has a GPA requirement of like a 3.8, that's a little hard to jump your GPA up this last year of your academic success in high school. So just to be transparent with yourself and look through those colleges of choices by utilizing some of those websites we provided to really have an understanding for what they accept and then fit that into your puzzle piece for where you land. Next slide. And then after all that, we're going to get up to the point in which we are going to start applying for colleges. And I know there's different deadlines as well, in which some may even be coming up as soon as November of this year, which is super exciting. So we're almost there. So to keep yourself staying organized, like I said, create that list of colleges of choice just to help you become more familiar and comfortable with the admission process, all of the academic criteria. It's just going to put you 2 steps ahead, and it's going to set yourself up mentally for success. Create a calendar of important dates and deadlines. I know myself, like I had just pretty much jotted this into my phone purposely to remind myself for when certain deadlines would come up, because I know we all have that accessible at our fingertips, like 24/7. So just put yourself in the best foot forward, doing what's going to work best for you. It could either be leaving sticky notes around the room with to-dos or reminders for what's coming up. So whatever is more fun and creative for you, that's what it's about. Also create like a folder for yourself that lists all of the achievements you've done inside and outside of the classroom. So that can include award letters, like Christina was mentioning, transcripts, so right now unofficial. Letters of recommendation that you may have accumulated as well or will in the future, and anything, etc., like NHS opportunities. I know with like Superintendent Service Corps. So whatever you can think off the top of your mind, definitely organize yourself to know what it is that you've all done ever since the start of 9th grade. and make copies of the items that you submit. And it's always a good idea to date those just so that way you have an understanding for what you've already done. You're not getting yourself in a scramble, because that can just cause, an amount of overwhelming and nerve wracking. So we definitely don't want that for you. Like, this is supposed to be such a fun experience, and with grit especially, I know that's why we're here, to make it a smooth and easy transition as possible. And the last thing to note as well is just to use or create a professional email address, and one that you can definitely keep looking at. So that being said, I know, like, especially with your high school email, while you may be using that so much in your time right now, once you graduate, like, that's going to get eliminated. You're not going to be able to access that anymore. So using a professional email address, maybe within something stating like your name, your first or last name, avoiding any like specific characters, things like that. I mean, I'm sure you're very well aware of what professional email address could look like, but just another food for thought that is just maybe something minor that you could forget. So with the application process, like we said, start applying early, because it depends on where you're looking to go. Community college and universities have various application deadlines. Even to name the few, we have coming up early action versus early decision, and then a little bit later down the line, like regular decision. So just to keep in mind, like early action, you're just taking the action upon yourself to apply to some of these schools of choice, and which is non-binding. However, early decision, think of that word decision, like you are making the decision right then and there to apply to the school. And if and when accepted, woohoo, it's a binding opportunity. They are going to expect for you, the student, to attend that university that you had applied early decision for. So just to keep in mind some of those deadlines. And then at that point, that is when you're going to send official transcripts once you've completed your full entire 12th grade academic year. So it's totally okay to access unofficial transcripts, which I know a lot of you probably know how to do that at your fingertips, but if not, let us know or speak with your high school counselor. Now's a great time to try to start seeing where to do that, because it's going to come in handy when application time rolls around in a couple months. So just become familiar with the transcript process, and then start thinking about personal statements, and also letters of recommendation, which we'll get into in the next couple slides as well. Next slide. So we're also going to talk a little bit about the Common Application too. I know it's a little bit hard to see on the screen as far as like what different states or what different colleges are in partnership with the Common App, but what we can do is send you, they have a wonderful website in which you can certainly just search the college and it will either appear or not appear. So there's over 1,000 partners within Common App, also providing 24/7 support for you on your journey in doing that. So let's click the next slide so that way we can kind of review a little bit of what that is. So some of you may have already been familiar with what the Common Application is. If you haven't, then I'm glad that we're walking through this today and kind of give you a glimpse for what this is and how it works. So here's a few different steps. What you're going to want to do first is create your free profile. This is your chance to really kind of put everything that you've done, like I said, inside and outside the classroom in here, because the university wants to know all about you. Like, not you only as the student, but who you are as a wholesome person all around. Once you've created this profile, then you're going to start adding your colleges to your list, which I think you can add about up to 20. So this will be a great indicator, because as you're adding your colleges to your list, it's going to represent a lot of the characteristics that are to be expected of you as the incoming student, maybe some of the requirements, which is step number 3. Thank you. Which is step number 3, to know what the school is all going to require of you to submit as the applicant. For example, some applications may require a certain amount of letter of recommendations. Some may require you to submit 8 essays for some of those Ivy League schools versus 1 or 2 written prompts for ASU, for example. It will also indicate what the, of course, academic requirements are, GPA, entrance exams, if applicable, because while a lot of the schools nowadays, as mentioned, are test optional, some of those more high achieving competitive schools will still look for things like that. So it's just great to utilize this resource to see what all is to be expected, or what at least to look out for. And then finally, when the time comes, you will submit those applications. So like we say, it's a huge moment. Like just take a second to congratulate yourself and just pat yourself on the back for all the tremendous work you've done up to this point. And even utilizing something like the Common App is just setting yourself up for success and having like a house that hosts all of your informational pieces. It's essentially what this is. There still will come the time in which you apply, and I know that applications do have like application fees, which there are always fee waivers available, and which we can discuss further too within your Grit Advisor. So other thing with that too is apply to financial aid opportunities within this last section. Next slide. So I'm not going to click on any of these today, just because I know the videos can be a little bit lengthy. But if you still want a little bit more of a helping hand for how to access or navigate the Common application, there are tons of opportunities for you to watch through YouTube or just even Googling like what this screenshot has, just for you to see like both from a desktop perspective, maybe from a mobile device to see how that's user friendly or how that interchanges with one another. So just to see what all is out there for you to visualize a little bit more before getting started. Next slide. Okay, so these are some of the steps to completing the Common application. So just to maybe start gathering these informational pieces like we've already just been discussing in this presentation, a copy of that high school transcript. So of course it will be unofficial for now. It should at least have everything from 9th, 10th, and 11th grade. If you need some more help, talk with your academic counselor or us here at College Depot. We're more than happy to help. Start gathering a list of your activities through school, through work if you hold a part-time job or an internship, and just other responsibilities maybe you take on your own and within your own family, or volunteer work as well too. As mentioned, of course, if you have those test scores and you feel super comfortable and confident in wanting to submit those, definitely start gathering those as well, SAT and ACT. And then look for some of the parent and legal guardian information. It's just great to look ahead because that may be some things that you can't necessarily plan so much for without speaking to those that know best, your legal guardians or your parents. And then lastly too, really start to think about all of the academic honors and achievements that you've had throughout your time in high school. So even for some examples, like I said, I know that some of you are well within the Superintendent Service Corp opportunity with Mrs. Haggerty. So that's an awesome opportunity to jot down in the Common App too. Just anything really within that brag sheet. And I know that we'll get into that in a few slides down the line too. But that is really going to help you just because you may have forgotten some things of your accomplishments ever since 9th grade. Like that sounds like such a long time ago, right? So you want to just make sure that you encompass everything of who you are, like I said, not only as a student, but just you as a wholesome person. So next slide. We're just going to go through a few of the screenshots at least, just so you can kind of get a glimpse prior to making an account or logging in for what this looks like. So if you were to just Google, for example, Common App or Common Application, you'll click on the Create Account button. And so next slide. After you've done that, this is kind of where you'll get started. So you can create a free account. You're going to click on first year student. I know there's a few options to pick from, but click on that first one. Next slide. And then after you've done so, the next slide will show you more of a visual, but here's what you're going to do. If you haven't yet attended college, which I don't think any of you really have, you're going to select first year student. And even if you are or have taken dual enrollment credits or like through the ACE program, you're still going to want to select yourself as a first year student. So please keep that in mind. And then you're going to create, of course, new login credentials. With a lot of the things I'm sure you're already accustomed to filing, like your name, your birthday, your email address and whatnot. Like I said before too, use a personal/professional email. You want to make sure this is going to be an email that you're actively checking. It's easy to miss certain things. And like I mentioned too, if you're utilizing high school email, that's going to poof right away after you've graduated. So you don't want that to go away too. So that being said, just make sure that you list your legal name as it appears on some of those official school documents, like your official transcript. and even the standardized tests like the ACT or the SAT. So for example, if you put your first, middle, and last name, then put your first, middle, and last name. Or if you had placed 2 last names, do the same. So just make sure that you have access to knowing what you had put, because that was probably a little bit hard to remember too, knowing that that might have been a year ago. So that's just something to keep in mind too. And then after that, you'll select create account and you're done. So if you click on the next slide, I pretty much just provided you information with what that's going to look like, but the next slide will show you a screenshot of what that looks like. Next slide. Okay. So as you can see, you're going to put your email address, your password, and put all of those informational pieces. A couple more things, which I know it's a little bit harder for in-person people to see, but there's a couple questions asking, like if you're currently based in a European Union country, and we've like already selected those answers for you, so that would be no. And then which best describes you? There's 4 different options, or 3 different options. And you want to select that middle one, that you're planning to start college in 2024, if that still stands true for the upcoming fall semester next year. Next slide. So once you have created an account, this is essentially what it's going to look like for you. There are different categories on the top. As you can see, your dashboard, you can see my colleges, so you can take a look at what all that you've added. And then there's one entitled the Common App. There's also going to be a college search button. And then last but not least, financial aid opportunities. So within the Common App category, there's 7 different sections. So there's profile, which you can see on the screen here. It's going to give more information, more specific to you. There's family information. There's then education of what you're currently doing now, testing, activities, there's writing, and then lastly, there are the courses and grade sections. So definitely spend a little bit of time in there, just because you want to ensure that all the facts are straight, they're truthful, you're putting everything and anything that you can and remember. But it's just a great, like I said, house to host everything, to keep it a little bit more organized for you. So that being said, I can go to the next slide. Here are 10 factors that universities are going to consider for holistic admission. So we're just going to kind of briefly go through all of 10 of them real quick. And just keep in mind, like just as you are doing your research and considering the college as a whole, like we talked about those different bullet points of what you want to look for, like that's what they're doing for you as the applicant too. So GPA and class rank is definitely going to be number 1, of course, which I know a lot of you, if all of you should have a grade point average, a GPA. I know some schools may not participate or utilize class rank. So if you don't know what percentage of your class, like maybe top 10, top 15 that you are, definitely look through your class profile and your dashboard or unofficial transcript to definitely try to obtain those informational pieces too. Awards and achievements are definitely something to look into inside and outside of the classroom. Challenging subjects, like maybe those core subjects that you've been taking, language as well too is super important. Getting those recommendation letters, and also just focusing on other special talents that you may have to showcase to the school for what is going to make you stand out is something to keep in mind as well. Who you are, you know, your characteristics, what is your personality like? They definitely want a glimpse of your values and who you are. What all have you done as far as community involvement and support outside of the classroom? Your work experience, like I said, that applies to you. If you've had any part-time jobs, definitely start thinking about those pieces of information to put forth into your work too. Extracurricular activities and like hobbies or clubs is something important to gather as well. And then the last 2 are the ACT and or SAT scores. And then just ensuring that upon application time that you're submitting a great essay. And even if there's an interview portion tied to that, that you're really putting your best self forward and being as confident and comfortable as you are. So just to keep in mind about those 10 different things as you begin to apply in the next couple months here. Next slide. Okay, So we're going to come back a little bit to what we first discussed as far as knowing what a personal statement is / essay. So a lot of college applications and maybe even some scholarships are going to require a personal statement of the applicants. So this is not necessarily like the standardized 5-paragraph essay in which you would typically avoid using like I in as a statement. This is about you. So that's why we kind of talked a little bit about the brag sheet as well, which we will in just a second too again. But you want to focus on like your skill sets, your values as a person, as a student looking at the school, how that matches to their criteria or even furthermore. So start thinking about what all your background entails, your academic aspirations, and even just career goals overall for the long haul. Even ask yourself some questions to include in these personal statement details. Like, why do you want to attend this school? And maybe even do the research on their site and even try to go a little bit further for informational pieces you wouldn't be able to find on the site by asking those questions with other representatives to really allow you to stand out and fully validate your feelings for why you want to go there. What unique qualities will you bring to their program or just to their mission in general? Something to think about writing a personal statement for. And then how will your time at the school impact your future? Like I said, at least for undergrad programs, that could be beginning 2 years up to 4 years. Like it's a big chunk of your time. So you really want to assess the why and the how, just your reasoning overall, because that's just going to make a whole lot of a difference as you start preparing this paper for yourself. You just want to come genuine and true to the heart. It should be organic coming out. So just to take that into consideration too. Most personal statements, they are going to have like a maximum word count to keep in mind too. So that way it could come like super easy starting to jot things down of all that you've done or what you believe, but just to consider that as well too, because you want to ensure you're following the prompts that are being asked of you. I'm don't believe that I can click on this link, but we can put in the chat college essay guide. This is a great resource, like just to help you food for thought as you're starting to think about creating this personal statement, where to pull from, other avenues to start thinking about for where you can begin or how you can begin writing this substantial piece of work. So this is something that we utilize here at College Depot or promote to students too. So take a minute to browse that through your own time as well when you get home. Next slide. So those letters of recommendation, like we mentioned, so some of you may have already had some letters of rec already written for you for certain things throughout your high school career. You want to at least ensure, best case scenario, you're giving your recommender at least a month in advance. I mean, we could also consider a couple weeks of professional value as well too, but best case, at least a month. Just because you want to ensure that this person is taking the time, very thorough and detailed, to write all about you, your values. And so that being said, like some of you may have previous letters of rec that you can utilize for other opportunities coming up while within your college career. Some of these may be fresh that you're going to start obtaining now, just because it can be very specific to a certain scholarship. It can be very specific to a certain part of the program, maybe the honors college, like Barrett at ASU, for example. So you really want to equip your recommender to know all about you through your brag sheet. And this is not to be humble, people. Think about what all that you've done. You want to be greedy in your academic achievement and really make sure that you put everything on that sheet. That's why it's a brag sheet. So this is super helpful even to provide your recommender too, because of course they're going to know the person you are in their class. Like maybe you're focusing on one of those core subject areas, like you have a great relationship with your English high school teacher. What is it all that you do outside of that too? So you want to provide them with as much information as possible. And as we put on the screen too, make sure they're coming from specific types of recommenders that can clearly write a solid leadership paper for you. So teachers, it can be some coaches that maybe you have a close connection to. Of course, academic counselors, we just really want to avoid asking like people like friends and family members to avoid the bias for that. But ask a variety of people who can really speak well to your behalf on the various achievements that you've done. And so, as mentioned, you really want to identify the specific deadline, because with some application requirements, whether it's for college or scholarships, some may allow you to go directly to them and then take back that paper with you to then upload. Others, it may be just a matter of electronically requesting and then your recommender submitting that directly without going through you as the middleman. Either way, definitely ensure to communicate your intentions and just the fact that you are kindly requesting that person to write such a valuable piece of work in your name. So it's just very professional to do that. And even think as well too at the end of that, like writing a thank you note, a thank you email, like just for all the time and the dedication that they spent to allow you to hopefully move forward in the process with whatever the college admission application entails. We did provide the link, and we may have some copies here too that we can provide you afterwards with what a brag sheet may look like, just to help you get started on your journey. So if you haven't done one of those, I would suggest definitely start taking a look now to complete some of those. It's just going to help you as you apply to various of these colleges, because I'm sure a lot of you have even a handful of colleges that you're looking into. So it's just going to be repetition. So you want to ensure that you have this solid on a piece of paper, more organized for you. So keep that in mind. Next slide. Last but not least, you may already have your college or colleges of choice mapped out. And that's why we provided you with resources today to continue or to start utilizing those websites to really help you on your journey to success. The other thing that comes with that too is just knowing what you want to do, what you want to major in, what career you see yourself obtaining in your post-secondary education. So it's okay not knowing right away. I can talk from personal experience. I changed my major 4 times in my college career, and that's okay. It's just, it could even take, watching your favorite TV show to kind of get a glimpse for what the medicine practice may be about, or taking some of these assessments like we listed on the board. Like Me3 is a great one. Big Future has some major and career assessments too. Even just talking within people in your family, your friends, like networking, just to hear about like one-on-one and personable relevant experience for what it looks like in their current aspirations or their current job field, to really help get a glimpse of what it is that you could potentially see yourself doing. But again, it's totally okay not to know right away. Just knowing where you want to go and those other factors as well is maybe a one step, if not the biggest first. And then we, of course, as your grit advisors, like can help you in our appointments walk through some of these other assessments, because they can be lengthy, they can be detailed, and just kind of talk with you about what it is that your inspirations are and what you're looking to ultimately obtain and see yourself doing for the long haul. Because like I keep mentioning, I know it could be a lot of work, but we do want to make this such a fun experience for you. It's just definitely going to be such a time of your life to be able to specifically start doing what it is that you want to do to make change. Next slide. And that is all that I have. I'm going to pass off for financial aid opportunities to Christina.
All right, everyone, the exciting part, the money. So before I get into the financial aid, I just wanted to highlight what Dominic had talked about with majors and colleges. I hear this question come up a lot. So a lot of you are doing dual enrollment, or some of you are obtaining your associates while you're in high school, which is amazing. It is good to at least know what major you plan to focus in college, because I always tell my students to make sure that you check. And you can check the coursework if you go on to that college that you're interested in the major. And usually they'll, under the major, they'll have the course curriculum description, and you can match the codes with the dual enrollment. CLEP comes up a lot. So like credits that you can test out of Spanish, English 101. And you always want to make sure that you check those so that you're not taking classes that can't transfer over into that degree. So that would be the only time that you really want to get on the ball and check to see what college you're interested in and what majors, that you can make sure that you're matching it, and the classes that you're taking are matching up with the classes that apply to that major and career. So financial aid, next slide. So it's like, oh. So the financial aid deadline has changed this year. It's always been in October. So in October would have been the time that you would have made an appointment with your advisor, and we would have had an appointment to apply for your financial aid with W-2s. But this year has changed to December. And when that exact date is, we don't know quite yet. We actually had a meeting with financial aid gurus, if you will, and they still don't know the date either. So like everybody's in the same boat with not knowing exactly when that date is, but rest assured, because you're part of this program, we will let you know and we'll make sure that you're set up for success. But what you can do right now is you can log on to FAFSA and you can create a FAFSA ID for yourself and for your parents. And so if you are not sure which parent, both parents, there is this handout, the first step, if you want to open that up and then also drop that in the chat. I can go over what parent or parents you will create the FAFSA ID for, because it depends on how they filed. So if you want to open that first step link. So on the top of my head, I know that if your parents are together and they're married, filed jointly, then you would just need the FAFSA ID for one of them. So make sure that you can create for yourself and one of them. And then there's like all these different equations. So if your parents are not together, filed separately, then you would need a FAFSA ID for both of them. But you can always just set up an appointment. It's a question you can always ask your grid advisor before that time. We have, a few months away still. So as far as those like nitty gritty details, we'll make sure that you're set up for success. But that is something that you can do right now. Next slide. In addition, there's also a Pell eligibility worksheet that you can look at and kind of get a good snapshot of where you land and how much grant money you can receive, if any, from the government. And that's always like a very nice and also sometimes kind of depressing. You're not going to get anything because it's like, oh, like, based on financials, I really have to hustle and like work hard for scholarships. So you can, your merit, like your academics and all the great things that you're doing to excel in school, all those things will help you for also like the university-based scholarships as well, and obtaining as much funds as you can so that you're not maximizing out your loans, because you're always going to get loans, right? So you fill out a FAFSA, the government's always going to be like, yes, here's this loan and this money that you owe us. But what we're really trying to reach for is like how much money they can give you based on where you land. And again, it's something you can go over with your advisor. We can put that Pell eligibility handout in the chat for you all at home to look at. And it'll basically tell you like how many are in your household, if your parents filed jointly, single, and then where you land, like the maximum amount that they make. And then if it's over that number, then you can pretty much estimate that you're not going to get anything. But if you fall kind of in between like that bottom number and the top number, then you are going to get something. And the maximum, I've seen it go up a little bit more, is about $6,345 per year. So they break that up per semester. And also another thing that you'll be eligible for on the FAFSA that you can apply for is work study. And so this is really nice because you can make money while you're in school, and you at least have to be attending half-time. And so the work study programs are assigned by your school. So like, I was in a work study, and it was really nice because I worked at the front desk at the gym, and it was super chill and cool. And they allow you to study. They know you're there in school, so it's very flexible. It's not like you're working like an in and out, where you're like, which is great if you work at in and out, but like you can't study it in and out because you have to be focusing on the customers. So like when you're involved in something like a work study, it's really nice because you're able to kind of multitask too and like do studies and also be getting paid for it. As I mentioned before, the loans, they're always going to award you loans, and there are a few different options, and I just put in the percentages in there so you can kind of get an idea of what those percentages are and what the difference of a subsidized and an unsubsidized loan. So a subsidized does not accrue interest while you're in school at least half time. So those are the ones like when you fill out your FAFSA, when you've applied to your school, you'll have a school dashboard, okay? So all of you, like, let's say you got accepted to University of Arizona, that's a school you want to go to, all of your financial information will be transferred to University of Arizona, and then you'll get your own dashboard, and you'll be able to check your financials, and that's where you're going to accept all of your awards. And so a lot of students, they accept, if they have to take loans out, they go with the subsidized first. Not only is it lower interest, but it also does not accrue interest while you're in school. Now, it does start accruing interest after 6 months after you graduate, but if any time between that, if you have not found a job or you're not ready to make payments, you can always call them and you can defer them, which means that they put them on hold and then it'll postpone payments for that. And then the subsidized loan is the other loans, and then the interest rate's a little bit higher, and they do accrue interest like during all periods of that. So kind of just to give you an idea. That like made no sense to me when I was in school. I was just like, whatever, but we'll go over it again with you, but I just want to make sure that you all have that information. Next slide. All right, and then school site scholarships. So like I mentioned, based on your academics and all of the other activities, leaderships that you're doing in school, every school that you apply to, you're going to be awarded some type of scholarship based on that. You're going to be like put in the category for this. And like Dominic mentioned, there's early admission, there's early decision, and then there's regular decision. So the benefit of applying early decision is that you're like put in the front of the line to have these scholarships awarded to you sooner, and like the pot, right? So like it's like you also not only get your decision earlier, but you're also able to know like how much money you were awarded, and that helps you in your decision when you're applying to a bunch of different colleges and like figuring out your financials. And so they look at your GPA, they look at your ACT and SAT score, and like VNA mentioned, if that's something that you really want to work towards and like increasing your eligibility to get a school site scholarship, it is in your best interest to like raise that score up a little bit, because that's when it's really going to come in handy, unless you're applying to an Ivy League school and like you're looking for the specific SAT score, ACT score to get in. And then again, like all of your community service, your academics, all that's going to be come into play when they're looking at awarding you. And it's just free money. It's just more money for you to have. And if you go on to each college that you're interested in, they'll have like a financial aid section on their website. And then they'll also have their criteria that kind of will show you what they're looking for in awarding their school site scholarships. Next slide. And then again, so scholarships, there are so many different kinds of scholarships. There is highly competitive scholarships. Those are the types of scholarships that are going to give you a full ride, meaning they're going to pay for everything, your tuition, your books, a lot of times, sometimes your housing. And so those are highly competitive, but if you are working hard in school and this is like your school and academics, your full-time job, please apply for these, because you worked hard and you're an amazing candidate to be in the running for these like big money scholarships is what I like to call them. And then there's also like the less competitive ones. So these are like essays, personal statements, providing your opinion on things like Taylor Swift. What's your favorite Taylor Swift album as an example? And those are just less competitive. And these are all just like scholarships that you can apply for on all of your downtime that you have. But it truly is like a full-time job. So if you just put these scholarships in different compartments, you can really have some money to help pay for your college. And where can you find these scholarships? You can always ask your grid advisors. You can ask your college counselors, your school teachers, your coaches, any of the leadership programs that you're in. Your teachers know you best and your coaches know you best. So a lot of times, like they have scholarships in mind, like, you'd be a really good candidate for the scholarship. So I highly encourage you to ask those adults that you're working with at school if they have any scholarships in mind that they think you'd be a good fit for it, since they are working so closely with you. And then college websites, they all have their own scholarship pages as well. And when you're in college, you also are eligible to apply for scholarships like each year that you're in, if you did not get awarded like a full ride scholarship. So keep that in mind. You're a freshman in college, You can apply for scholarships sophomore, junior, all the way to your senior to help pay for your school. And then in addition, like don't forget about the social media accounts. So following College Depot, Scholarships Corner, Scholarships 360, like those are great ways. Since you're on social media anyways, just add them to your feed and then see what scholarships come up and apply to them if they seem interesting to you. And I just put a bunch of links in there. A lot of you that have met with your good advisors already know them, but like I said, College Depot, College Greenlight's a great one, Unigo, Scholarship Owl, bowl.org, and then Get Schooled. And then we can drop those in the chat as well. Next slide. And then scholarships for DACA and Dreamers. There are many scholarships out there as well to help fund your education. I would highly suggest Aliento, following them on social media, bookmarking their website because they have like the best handle on the community. And if any new information comes up, they're gonna know. And so like all of these scholarships I listed, they already have it on their page. They're going to be posting reminders on their website, on social media. So if you are someone that is a candidate for DACA, for DACA scholarships, please follow Aliento and get under the radars and call them up for any questions that you have because they're just an amazing resource in the community. Next slide. So savings matching plans. So these are two opportunities that we have here in Arizona. And there's one called New Leaf Assets to Opportunity and one is called Earn to Learn. Now, both of these have different criteria. A lot of it is if you can open the New Leaf Assets to Opportunity link, please. We can go over the criteria. But I know they're going to be savings matching plans, and the New Leaf Assets to Opportunity has an 8-to-1 match. And so all this money goes towards your college education. So this is also a really great way to help fund your education. If you go on their website, they're going to have a link to where you can put in an application and they'll get back to you. If you want to just scroll down to the eligibility. There you go. So they have two sections. So they have education, small business. Obviously, y'all are in high school. So unless you have a small business, you can do that as well. But the education, so your income needs to be below 200% federal poverty line. What does that mean? So the Pell Grant eligibility form that I just referenced earlier for the FAFSA, like that has that wording on there. So you can kind of look to see where you land. And then you have to have some kind of earned income, 16 years or older, be a resident of Arizona, and you just have to commit to saving $500 and saving for at least 3 months. Commit to making $30 deposits twice per month, complete a financial wellness workshop, so that's like through them, and complete all of their program requirements. So if you are interested in this, I would highly recommend like going onto their website, filling out that interest application or giving them a call if you don't know like exactly like what they're asking of like for requirements for like how many workshops do I have to attend, because I know you all are in school and you're busy, so your time is of the essence right now. And so I would highly, highly recommend you reaching out to them for that New Leaf savings match program. And then if we can open up the other one, please. Earn to Learn is another one. Okay, so Earn to Learn actually partners up with specific schools, and you'll see those icons on the bottom. So if any of those schools you're interested in, this program would partner up with them. And then if you just kind of scroll up to the top, I can look at the eligibility there. So you have to qualify to receive $1 from federal Pell Grant money. So again, going back to that eligibility worksheet, like even if you get $1, you're eligible for this program. Qualify for in-state tuition, enroll in a certificate or degree seeking program, which you all are because you all plan on going to college, and then attend as an undergraduate student. And then you cannot have already had a bachelor's degree. So again, you're all in high school, so that doesn't apply to you. So if you meet those requirements, I would highly suggest going to this website too, and they also have an interest form, and I believe they have a waiting list right now too as well. So you can click on their link and just let them know that you're interested, and then they will connect with you with any questions that you have. So we can close out of this. Next slide. Any questions right now about savings plans, financial aid? Yes. Uh-huh. So it's a good question. I had that question earlier. So CSS profile, from what I understand, and then ladies over here, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It has to do with the specific college that you're applying for and them having it part of a requirement for you to complete. And mostly it's like Ivy League schools, correct? So most Ivy League schools, part of their admission requirement, and which is not added to Common App, because remember Common App, you're just going to apply. It's going to be an extra requirement. You're going to create a CSS profile, which is going to be very similar to like the FAFSA. They're going to ask you pretty much all that information. And I think like for them, it's like their added requirement, and it ties into their how they're going to fund any type of scholarships and stuff. So yeah, really good question. Anything else? Okay, yeah. So Jazz is going to come up here anyways and talk about setting yourself up for success and future independent, and then she can get into more detail about CSS.
Thank you, Christina. And just a little bit more detail on the CSS profile. A lot of private institutions, colleges that are very generous with their aid would require it. It's just another application that you'll need to submit as you complete your application and on the Common App typically. It's kind of asking a lot more questions about like your family's financial situation, what assets they have, any properties they own, if you have any siblings or other people in your family in college, and like what expenses you might guys have, just to provide like information. It's mostly as like a protection for the school to make sure that like you're not like a secret millionaire, because usually the FAFSA only asks for income and not like any other sort of thing. So that's what it is. But hi everyone, my name is Jazz. I'm also a GRIT advisor, and you guys are reaching like the home stretch for our presentation. So thank you so much for sitting through it. I know it's a little cold in here. Hopefully we'll be able to stand up and warm up soon. But in these final slides, I'll be talking about how to set up yourself for success, kind of what Christina was hinting at, like saving up some money and also future independence. So no, actually we have a video on this slide, and I kind of just want you guys to pay attention to that message that will be said in this video, just so that we could have a good understanding of what we're going to be going on to.
While I'm doing that, one of the most interesting things that we see as we run across the country teaching this fantastic method is people continually say, I can't draw a straight line. I don't have the talent, Bob, to do what you're doing. That's baloney. Talent is a pursued interest. In other words, anything that you're willing to practice, you can do. And this is no exception. But it's like driving the car. At first, it's a little difficult. You have to learn how to make your hands and your foots work together. Same thing, and that's what we're trying to teach you here, is the technique. Once you have the technique down, all you need the dream in your heart and the desire to put it on canvas. Okay.
I know it was a little hard for you guys to hear. Hopefully
When it
for those
comes to
online,
unhappy
they get
customers,
it. It's just kind of like a blurb of Bob Ross kind of telling you that, like, you know, there are some like things that you could achieve just through a bit of practice. And hopefully as we move on to like the presentation, you guys will be able to see what practices you guys could implement within your own lives to especially set yourself up for success. We move on to the next slide.
more important to the bottom line.
All right, perfect. So one of the things, especially for setting up for yourself for success, is budgeting and saving. Now, I know college could be expensive and there are scholarships to cover the cost of tuition and possibly room and board, but there are also a few other expenses that you might be paying for in college that you're not aware of currently. So such as textbooks, schools and supplies, and even transportation, whether you're staying in state or out of state, it will cost you just to get to and from campus, even if you're living on campus. So one of our recommendations is setting yourself up for a college expense sheet. So kind of like listing exactly what things you might be spending in college, and then really keeping track, making sure you're not going out of budget, but making sure you're also staying in budget and you're pretty much like set for the school year. There are a few ways that you could save money. So renting or buying used cheap textbooks for school. So a lot of schools, they either require a physical copy, you might be able to find a free online PDF of the book. It's just like looking for those. And a lot of schools, especially I know ASU, they provide kind of like free trials for like the textbook that you're going to be using. They give you discounted rates at compared to the market price for those textbooks, and you could definitely go ahead and try to find those as you go into college. And then also looking for flexible work opportunities, or also even paid internships, especially some of you might be taking on internships in your senior year. But as you go into college, you might want to be looking for, again, work studies, like Christina mentioned, kind of something that would be able to understand your school schedule, and especially as exams come up and any other busy times during a college. For a few examples, if you want to find a job right now as a high school senior, Starbucks, Home Depot, Target, and even AmeriCorps provides that kind of financial assistance for you guys. Next slide, please. So when we go into thinking about college, we kind of want to think about thinking of a balance for school, especially as a high school senior. You guys might be so used to being only a student, but not any other things in your other portions of life. So as you go into college, it's definitely going to be a big shift. You're going to be working on college, probably being a full-time student, but then also wanting to focus on other things such as getting a job, earning a bit more money, and then also your day-to-day life and personal things. You definitely want to carefully plan your work and class schedule and prioritize what is important to you. So whether that's school, work, or personal life. Figure out days and times for your classes. Definitely have a good balance. You don't want to go to like all your classes in one day of a week. It's definitely burnt out. For some students in college, they kind of like to space out their classes, making sure they have time for lunch and then other things to do after classes. Days and times for your work internships, you definitely want to make sure that they're not overlapping with your classes and that you have to miss one or the other. You want to keep those two things separate. And then days and times for extracurriculars, especially if you want to do any clubs in college, or if you join a sport in college, there's definitely going to be a lot of time taken away from that. Any events like that this college might have, definitely set aside time for that, just so that you have that nice work-life balance. And of course, the most important thing to maintain this balance is communicating. Communicating with your counselors, your academic advisors, saying that you want to have a specific schedule while moving into college, and then your employer, if you're working with one, to making sure that you can communicate what important dates are available if you plan to take a vacation, or just taking some time away, especially if you work in college and you're working at like not a work study, then some employers might try to like schedule you for the breaks. And if you're planning to go home or just want to take a break during that time, definitely communicate that with them. Can we move on to the next slide? And the next thing about like setting yourself up for success is staying organized and being dedicated. And you might think that you're not as organized or you find it impossible to be organized, but just think back to that Bob Ross video. Putting in that time and practice will definitely get you a ways ahead. You can definitely start now, especially as you're a senior in high school. You kind of really have to stay organized and on top of those deadlines for college. So start keeping a planner, whether it's a physical one or a digital one. I know myself, because I am a junior in college, I use Google Calendar to organize all my deadlines and also all my classes. I keep important dates on there. So again, like I keep when I have my vacation, when I'm taking my finals as well, homework days, and my class and work schedule. Also plan ahead. A lot of colleges provide you a syllabus and everything that you're going to have. Nothing will be like a surprise as you move into the semester. They will list typically all the dates, and if some professors also provide like when all assignments are due, so you can get ahead, read ahead on the chapter materials and such. So that also know when assignments are due. It's kind of especially when you're balancing a lot more classes. Just kind of keep on track and making sure that you're staying on top of those assignments. And then have a designated study space. For some, it might be the Phoenix Public Library here if you guys ever attend, or it might be even your bedroom. It's just really finding your like place of work and making sure that you're able to keep that space as you move into college. And then also finding your own workflow balance. So again, having that time for work, school, and other assignments, but then also keeping that balance between your personal life and being able to at least hang out with your friends or go out and enjoy yourself. Next slide, please. And one of the most important things about going to college is kind of preparing yourself for any setbacks or any sort of failures that you might be going on. You don't want to be so hard on yourself, especially as you're learning. Again, college is a learning process. It is a good time to start now as you are a senior in high school. So if for any of those moments that you experience a setback here in senior year, kind of celebrate the success that you're able to have out of those setbacks and then reflect back on what it means. And reflecting could mean a lot of things. It's just kind of taking what you've learned from it and what to do in the future for situations like that. And because of setbacks, there might be different pathways that we have to take. So it's just learning to be flexible for yourself, kind of keeping other options open, especially as we go on to the school year. There's another video that will be playing here. It's about Michelle Obama, and hopefully you guys will be able to hear it.
And if you'll notice, I'm not asking what are you going to do, but who are you going to be? I'm asking you about how you plan to live your life every day. How are you going to respond when you don't get that job you had your heart set on? For all of you who are going to be teachers, what are you going to do if the students in your class next year just don't respond to your lessons? For all of you going into business, how will you react when your boss gives you a goal that feels way too high? See, these are the moments that define us. Not the day you get the promotion, not the day you win Teacher of the Year, but the times that force you to claw and scratch and fight just to get through the day. The moments when you get knocked down and you're wondering whether it's even worth it to get back up. See, those are the times when you've got to ask yourself, who am I going to be? And I want to be clear, this isn't just some vague platitude about building character. In recent years, we've actually been seeing a growing body of research that shows that skills like resilience and conscientiousness can be just as important to your success as your test scores or even your IQ. For instance, West Point cadets who scored high on things like grit and determination were more likely to complete basic training than those who ranked high on things like class rank, SAT scores, and physical fitness. So what we're seeing is that if you're willing to dig deep, if you're willing to pick yourself up when you fall, if you're willing to work and work until your weaknesses become your strengths, then you'll develop a set of skills that you can mold and apply to any situation you encounter, any job you might have, any crisis you might confront. But you got to make that choice. And let me just share just a little secret before I end. As someone who has hired and managed hundreds of young people over the course of my career, whether it was during my time as a lawyer, as an administrator, as a university, a nonprofit manager, even now as First Lady, I have never once asked someone I was interviewing to explain a test score or a grade in a class. Never. I have never once made a hire just because someone went to an Ivy League school instead of a state school. Never. What I have looked for is what kind of person you are. Are you a hard worker? Are you reliable? Are you open to other viewpoints? Have you stepped outside of your own self-interest to serve others? Have you found a way to serve our country, whether in uniform or in your community? Again and again, I have seen that those are the qualities that I want on my team, because those are the qualities that move our businesses and schools and our entire country forward. And just understand this. Those are the qualities that you all already embody. They're the values you learned from your parents, from the communities you grew up in. And today, more than ever before, that's what the world needs.
So there was just that video that we wanted to share to you guys, kind of to give you a little inspiration, especially as we move forward into the college going process. I know college admissions could be very difficult. They could be full of setbacks and maybe sometimes even disappointment, but it's just making sure that you're able to recover from that and kind of move forward with yourself and kind of be proud of like where you've gotten. Now, as we move on, is kind of talking about self-care, and there are many forms of self-care, and there's different types of self-care that you could definitely focus on. There's physical self-care, which means like your health and taking care of your body. Social self-care, so making sure that you're maintaining your relationships with your friends and family, especially if you're going out of state from college. It's definitely a lot harder to leave behind friends and family that are familiar to you here in Arizona. Mental self-care, so that's very important, especially in our day and age. Keeping track of what it means to be yourself and turning true to it. Emotional self-care, again, as we go into this college going process, you might experience a lot of stress, a multitude of workload. It's just making sure that you're taking care and really paying attention to what your body needs during that time. And spiritual self-care, just kind of paying attention to the environment around you and making sure that you're creating a healthy one for yourself. So knowing when you need to take a break, especially again, taking like good care about your mind and body, just like seeing signs of stress and making sure that you're able to at least address it before you continue on. Connecting with your families and friends again, and then disconnecting and taking time to be alone and really like knowing how to recharge yourself while you're by yourself, and doing something that brings you joy as well. So can we move on to the next slide? Also keeping in mind mindfulness. They have like, we had an exercise, but I think we'll just go ahead and skip it. But just mindfulness is like the basic human need, ability to be fully present. So just kind of being aware of what you're doing and what you are, and not being overly active to your environment. So just kind of keeping that in mind as you go into college. Can we move on to the next slide? And then there's always support. If you ever find yourself in desperate need or in struggling as you move on into the college, just know that there are a lot of support provided to a lot of students as well. So there's the Teen Lifeline. There's also the Crisis Lifeline 988, and then the Trevor Project, which is meant for LGBTQ plus students if you're experiencing that type of support. And then connecting with on-campus resources. A lot of colleges have recently begun investing a lot more time into their health resources. So not only for like the students to be connected with a physician on campus, but then maybe even a counselor and a psychologist. You could also take advantage of student counseling that is provided on campus and really take advantage of your resources that you have within those. So if you ever catch a cold when you're in campus or as in college, or if you've ever like experienced something or like never had access to that type of counseling, really take advantage of that. And that is it for me, but I will wrap it up, bring it back to Christina just to kind of finalize our workshop. Thank you.
So just know that we're always here. So support is always here for you. We are so happy to see everyone that showed up virtually. You can connect with us by following us on IG, giving us a call, emailing your grid advisor. We'll put in the chat, but there's also the link tree with all the different resources that you can, in the ways that you can connect with us. Next slide. And in true spirit of really taking time to take care of yourself and finding joy in the process of being a high school senior and all the things that go with that. Again, like Dominic mentioned, pat yourself on the back for making it this far. It's really commending to you all that you all show up to these things. You know, there's a lot of faces that I've seen that are very familiar because it's not the first time that you've attended these academic workshops and knowing what you should do next, having a grid advisor, being curious about your education. But we really wanted to end it with having time for you all to collaborate with each other, get to know each other. We're going to be walking around, so if you have some questions that come up, we're here to answer them. For those of you that are here virtually, we're going to have some links for you all that will be in the chat that you can contribute to this activity as well, and we'll stay on. So if you have questions, we'll answer them in the chat. But we're going to be doing a collage, And all of the materials are over there for you to dig in and have fun. And we've been talking a lot about personal essays and personal statements and who you are and what you're about. So we're kind of hoping that this activity gets you out of your head or helps you brainstorm and just really thinking about maybe your identity, who you are, what makes you you, what's your culture, what's your background, what's your story. Maybe it's a a vision board of what you want your senior year to look like. Maybe it's just something that you hang up and it's a reminder of how far you've come, but just like something that brings you joy and a visual reminder of who you are, what you're about, and how far you have come. So I hope that you can stick around. Please get more snacks, more food, and all of the materials are back there. There's poster board, there's magazines, there's glitter, there's all the fun things to play with, and just have fun and make this your classroom today, and feel free to stay as long as you need. Thank you so much.